Deleted session, August 12, 1979. Now a repeat performance, an instant replay of material given in other ways before, with a new slant. Think of the slides shown today. Rob noted by Lauren. She said of postcard, Tunkhannock, Pennsylvania, USA, home of conventional American Protestant values. I am generalizing here to make a point. A largely postcard land, in which social cliches pass for communication, in which social ceremonies take the place of private communications, a land in which beliefs must be like landmarks, unchanging, utterly dependable, always there to be used for touchstones lest the puritanical Protestant stray from worthy goals, a land in which things must be judged thus and so, a land in which people disappear as much as possible into established family and social roles, where the lines are clearly marked. Now, generally again, such communities have teachers, judges, lawyers, dentists, some farmers on the outskirts of town, some factory workers, a sufficient number of ministers, and some car lots. Everyone knows in which social level each other person belongs. The wife's position is usually dependent upon the husband. The few upstarts move away. The community fits together because certain beliefs are indeed shared. They are conventional and stereotyped. This does not mean they may not be of some service to those people. Such communities have few points, few artists, and fewer mediums. Tunkhannock is actually an idealized version of that kind of community. In those terms, it is for Lauren a step up from, say, Sarah, whose history is richer even in lower-class origins. Sarah, however, generally now represented the poorer man's version of that American ideal, and it was from there that many of your beliefs and those of your brothers had their origins. A man showed himself a man, say, by getting paid every Friday night, coming home after a stop at the pub with coins juggling in his pocket, to give his wife the house money for the week. I do not want to hurt your feelings, but your particular beliefs about a man and money are in their way quite parochial, and you must understand that as far as money is concerned, also, those beliefs have little moral value. You may laugh when I mention, for example, that in some other societies, both today and in the past, a gentleman proved his moral worth and value by not working. Now that idea is no more ludicrous than the idea you have, for both attempt to prove personal merit through the manipulation of money and status. It is as ridiculous to prove your worth by working in a conventional sense as it is to prove your worth by not working in a conventional sense. Americans have had a fine and often understandable disdain for what was thought of as the European gentleman, or even the literary gentleman, or the man who somehow or other did not have to rub elbows with the masses. Not to work at an ordinary job or at a clearly defined occupation has always had a tint of European decadence to Americans, and that is to some extent the result of the early Protestants' attitude toward the wealthy, robed gentlemen of the late medieval Roman Catholic Church. Now, with that simple explanation, when you know your brothers will visit, you instantly leap to the old beliefs of childhood. When your mother wanted you to set an example, which meant be someone in society, in normal middle-class society. Now, use your art to make money, otherwise it was a liability in her eyes. She expected a clearly defined role. Now, she being uniquely herself, is more than pleased with your situation. A good house in a fine neighborhood, and who cares where the money comes from? Ram noted with more than a little humor. She said, but you worry that you are a failure in the framework of that postcard American system. Even though now you see quite clearly that the postcard is not bright and glossy, but a facade behind which lurks a great sadness. You have again and again an unconventional mind, unconventional abilities that straddle several fields of endeavor. You have an unconventional wife, because you have both utilized your abilities and tried to bring some release to that postcard world. Your works have automatically resulted in a comfortable living. Your endeavors cannot be labeled, nor can your contribution to our joint work be assessed. There is no one who can tell you how many dollars per hour you receive from your work, or what value it has. You are afraid you will be thought of as a gentleman of leisure. At the worst, a moral crime, most certainly in light of the beliefs that originated at the time the Protestants first abandoned the Roman Catholic Church. The man of letters is not understood either, and you feel that your brothers cannot understand what you do, since their minds seem relatively closed to the books themselves, which would automatically offer an explanation. Your body on its own is very happy to be so well provided for. Rupert said that he used to like his class money because it was tangible, and you understood. But you also told him that the money for books that came in check was just as good, and that there was more of it. You want to show some tangible means of support, however, in that same literal fashion, to your brothers, since you feel they cannot understand what you do. I do not want to give you a big head, but your wit and your abilities simply place you in another area of activity, for which you should be grateful. Do not be overly parochial or nationalistic in your views. There is a great history of masculinity that expresses itself through the development of thought, quiet meditation. And I do not necessarily mean of the mystical kind, of communication of the mind with nature. There is nothing wrong with your body. The memories and associations bring old beliefs to mind, and you see in such family visits the culmination in your brothers of those old beliefs. You must say they are mine no longer. I appreciate my own unique work. You must liberate yourself whenever such thoughts arise to mind, not by inhibiting them, but by confronting them, recognizing their origins, and realizing that you have left them intellectually behind, resolving that you will emotionally free yourself from their effects. I made a few comments about supply and demand recently, but there are far deeper issues. Unless negative beliefs stand in your way, then creative ideas that you contribute to the work will automatically take care of your needs, and it is truly idiotic to want to substitute that good fortune for such parochial concepts like the male as breadwinner or the male performing in a given definable fashion. You have had in the past to some extent a disdain because of your beliefs about yourself, for people perhaps met on the streets during business or working hours, or for people who did not have jobs, or who did not punch a time clock or whatever, and it is by those attitudes that you judge yourself, and find yourself wanting in the eyes, say, of your brothers. When your art was commercial, you could say again, you were working. When you paint, you feel you cannot justify your art. And in our books, you wonder what percentage your notes and contributions might make in the overall royalties. Say, most men's abilities are prosaic enough and conventional enough so that their value can be ascertained, or worked out by labor unions. If all a man can do to prove his value is to put a bolt in a car, or drive a trunk, or even teach a class, then he is very careful that that contribution be noticed, and that a definite value be given it. You cannot estimate the value of ideas or of creativity in that fashion. In this probability, the particular combination that resulted in our work required both of you, and entails combinations of abilities on both of your parts, and is built upon your entire relationship with each other. You are afraid you look as if the money comes to you too easily, when in the old system of beliefs everyone knew that you must work hard. I want to rid you of any lingering misconceptions, but you still have a lingering belief that your old ideas about money and the male have some kind of high moral value. The Protestants have always thought that artists were decadent, that contemplation was dangerous, and that leisure was a crime. To enjoy your work was suspect, and if you enjoy unconventionality of mind, some leisure in which to contemplate the world about you, then it is about time that you dismissed such parochial concepts and realized that there is no moral rectitude given them. Your body tries to enjoy those privileges that appear as the result of the creative abilities you are using. It enjoys good meals, a comfortable bed. It gets quite upset when a part of you thinks that it should be doing something else to make a livelihood. These ideas to some extent even inhibit natural plans rising in your mind, those of your own that will automatically lead to a book of your own, because you pursue yourself. You should do a book of your own if you want to, because you want to, not because of the money that might be involved. Some part of you still thinks there is something wrong with money unless you can show precisely where it came from. Or people might think you a crook, or a gigolo living off your wife. You must learn to dismiss such ideas as the rubbish that they are. Your body is in the right place at the right time, and I can see that it was in the right place at the right time for our chat. Do you have questions? Rob said, no, I need some time to go over all of this. They said, then I bid you a fond good evening. I have stuck to the most important beliefs about money and the male's status, but also such gatherings also bring into focus beliefs about age and illness and so forth. You can use such situations again as springboards. In a large measure, those beliefs represent the evidence of the old world before it is set upon by the light of new creativity. Bounce against that world into the more creative realm that you know in your heart is a far truer representation of reality. Allow your body to relax, and now I bid you a fond good evening. Ralph said, "Thank you," said good night. They said, "Now, please, that is correct. I do not want to overemphasize this point, so do not overemphasize it yourself. But the idea is that you sometimes become angry at your own unconscious creative abilities. I put that in quotes because you equate creative abilities as largely unconscious. You think then that if you were not so creative, you could have a proper niche for yourself, and therefore you tense a portion of the body that seems to be connected to the unconscious side of the self, and choose the brain, which connects old beliefs about males to the beliefs about creativity. Again, not to overemphasize this, at such times a part of you thinks, or you think partly, that if you were a simple working man, life would be easier. Do you follow the connections clearly?" Rob said yes. They said, "Do you have questions?" Rob said, "Not at this time. Thank you. It's very good." They said, "There is a long history connected with such American Puritan beliefs about morality, having to do with the fact that medieval priests were sometimes licentious and opulent. They did not work in the field," Ralph noted, "except for the poor monks." They said, and the Protestants determined, for example, that their ministers would have families, work with the people, and be too busy for licentious leisure activities. They scorned all decoration, and considered art sinful. Poverty was worthy, and proof of morality. In your country, this was coupled, however, with the growth of economic individualism, Darwinianism, and so forth. Though men could compete for a livelihood, wealth itself was and still is highly suspect. Even a wealthy man, in the light of those beliefs, doubles in art, doubles, justifying any love of art as a good investment. In the past eras of history, as you know, artists had patrons, but your society has not learned to deal with its creative people. It underpays them, ignores them, or extravagantly overpays them. They never fit that Protestant work ethic, and the very idea of a creative mind has not fit in, so far at least, with the overall patterns of the society in terms of religion or science. Take all of this to heart. You have been given the very circumstances your life and creativity requires. It is sheer nonsense to look back for, or desire, such rigid framework of self-worth or merit. End of session. Ralph said, "Thank you." They said, "A fond good evening." Ralph said, "Yes."